4.77 GPA in the second year of my university, the top 3 university in my country, and one of the most illustrious finance programs in the country, wherein I'm competing for a spot in that program. Scoring in the 10th percentile of my my country's college entrance exams, a 98 in the GAT and a 92 in the SAATs, a 95-page poetry collection that was edited from 141 pages, published at 18 and written from 17 to 18, a 353-page novel that I finished 2 weeks before my 19th birthday, that is still under edits currently. A society I started in my university, the first of its kind for Anglophiles and for people that want to practice English, to develop them, to help them build a community. How on earth did I get here? Well, you probably already know. You know how to get to the place that you want to get to. What I'm about to say is nothing new. It's all entirely within you. I'm just here to verbalize it and to help you hear yourself through what I'm about to tell you. Number 1, I dropped out of social media. Listen, this is the most controversial one, but I have never so far in my life met somebody who is super successful, very passionate about what they're doing, and super aligned with their highest self, who is still putting in like 4 hours a day in social media. It's just not gonna work. And I've never met people like that. I have met people who are super aligned with themselves, who have to post on social media because they're creators or they're marketing their services, but I have never in my life met somebody who is as successful and passionate about their life as I am, who is just on social media for casual browsing. That is just not something that I've ever seen. And to my knowledge, I do not think it is entirely possible. And it certainly was not possible for me at all. And when I, because it just took so much of my time and I was super addicted. I mean, look at what I've accomplished as soon as I dropped out of social media. I've accomplished so much in my life and I've found deeper peace than all the funny little jokes and all the laughs I could have had from social media are completely incomparable to the levels of joy and fulfillment that I've experienced since I left social media, and now I'm only on social media again to create and post. And number 2, I envisioned and prioritized my goals. This was especially imperative for me when I was still studying and I was still acing my college entrance exams. So at that moment, I actually stopped and halted work on my novel, which is why it took me a long time to finish it, because I had actually started it and started thinking about it when I was 16. And I completely put that on the sidelines and took on a lesser project, a lesser challenging project, which was the poetry collection, and I focused all of my energy into the college entrance exams. I was also dealing with another catastrophe at the moment. That was a personal family matter. And I did it. I just did it. I concentrated to the best of my ability on my college entrance exams because that was my number 1 priority. And after that, after I got into university, I was able to spend more time on my novel and to dedicate my energy to my novel. And number 3, I was flexible and okay with experimenting. So when I envisioned and prioritized my goals, I had a vision video. It's where you take a bunch of images related to the life that you want to lead, where you want to go, and you make and edit a video off of that. And you watch it every time you wake up and every time you go to sleep. And that is meant to help you really internalize, and it's basically brainwashing yourself to stay focused on that goal. So at the time, I had prioritized and envisioned going to a university that was in the top 10 but was not the third. And I did it because of not a deep personal reason. I just thought it would be a better university experience than the one that I'm going to right now. But because I was open to changing and I was flexible, I recognized that this university that I'm currently enrolled in is a much better choice for me. And so far, it has been, even in the university experience and in the rigor and in the academics, it is a much better choice for me because I was open to that possibility. I was flexible in my plans, and I did not really strategize on one specific university over another and like really hold on to it where I wouldn't where I wouldn't accept any other choice. That was not the case for me. And I was okay with experimenting. With that, I mean, I spent my first term in the business school of my university. And then, because I was young at the time and undecided, I was like, I want to be an ecologist, actually. I want to be a scientist. And then I was like, I actually want to be an architect. So I spent the next term in the science track, in the STEM track, which is a very intensive, horrifying experience. But going through that, instead of being scared of the experiment, being scared of trying, going through that made me realize that no, actually, I am much better suited for the business school and finance than I am suited to the hard sciences. That is just something that requires too much of my brain power, and I wouldn't have enough time and energy to focus on other aspects of my life. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't experimented. And yes, that experiment carried risk. Of course it did. Nothing worth anything comes without risk. But I took that risk and it paid off because I saw what life was like for those scientists and I investigated what it was like. I looked at the job opportunities and I saw all of this and I was like, okay, I don't have what it takes to be honest, and I'm not really interested in it. I'm not that passionate about this field, and I'm going back to business. Bye, guys. It was really that simple. And I had to maintain a high GPA to be able to switch back, and I did, thank God. So I just was not afraid of that experiment, and a lot of people were telling me, like, oh no, you can't go to the STEM track, it's so difficult. But I didn't listen to them. I experimented. I wanted to see it for myself. And I'm glad I did. And after I saw it, I came back fully convinced of the business school. So, whatever it is you're facing, be open to experimentation. If you get the inclination to try something else, prepare for it, study the possibilities, study what the consequences of that experiment might be, and if you deem it worth the risk, then go ahead and do it. Trust in God's plan to be able to provide for you, whether that is in that path or in another path. But like God wanted you to go through that experiment so that you can be convinced of it fully. I noticed that that was the case for me, that God sent me on that path for me to see it for myself, not to listen to people who were telling me it was hard or to people that told me that my scientific ambitions at the time were kind of pointless. I did not listen to these people because I wanted to see it for myself. I wanted to experiment with myself and I wanted to know what it felt like. Because at the end of the day, you cannot listen to people for something so deeply personal. You can take their advice and put it in your mind. Sure, you can weigh it, but you cannot listen to them just because they told you. You have to take it into consideration. You have to weigh it with your own desires, and then you can try it for yourself. You can't just listen to people absent mindedly like that. You can't just obey their commands without you fully believing it and having the knowledge and confidence in that decision. So be careful with that, experiment, and stay flexible. Now, I want to discuss the falling in love with literature and how I realized that that was my calling and how I prioritized it and left a lot of space for it in my life and dedicated a lot of energy to it. So I had fallen in love with literature after trying a bunch of things. I think if you don't know what you're in love with, try a lot of things, because the moment that I discovered Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice when I was, I think, 14 or 15, a new world really opened up to me, because at that point I had been reading literature just for the sake of reading literature and absorbing the story. It hadn't really clicked to me the possibilities of language, the the magnificence of language, and the kind of play and fun that you can really put in the language itself, in the language of the book itself, not in the mere plot or characters or inventions of the plot or the visuals, but in the actual language, down to the sentence structure. And when I discovered that, when I discovered Jane Austen and I went to the classics, I realized, my God, this is exactly what I want to do. And there were always hints towards that, even in the beginning. I was always the best in English class and history class. I had written a short story in the fourth grade that got into the school newspaper. I did write some snippets of fan fiction at some point. The lines and the dots were always there, and it was up to me to connect them. And while I realized that I really loved literature, and I sincerely loved the craft for what it was, that still didn't move me to really start and initiate the idea of a book, until I realized this crucial thing that the wizard Liz said in one of her videos. It's that celebrities, billionaires, successful people wherever they are and whatever they do, they are not different than you. You are both human. There's actually no literal genetic difference between you and a successful person. Whether that's a successful athlete, writer, or painter, there's genuinely and literally no difference. In fact, there are people who are successful now, more successful than you and I, who have come from way worse. I remember Wizard Liz telling us as the viewers about Oprah and how she was homeless in her car. And I remember reading about Ice Spice and how she had to like live out of her car. I think Kala Uchis, that's how you say her name, also had the same situation. And seeing where they came from like living in their car and being kicked out of their homes to being international celebrities, they have come from far worse than I have come. And I don't know about your own situations, but they could have come from similar situations as you. And they did not let that stop them. They went for their dreams and their passions and their calling. In fact, there are also people that came from very privileged backgrounds who also went for those dreams and didn't make it. And there are others that came from those privileged classes and that did make it. For example, Anya Taylor Joy is a very successful international actress. She was not living in her car. She was not living in her car. She came from good money. She came from a good upbringing and from like a wealthy upbringing. And she got to where she is. And so she came from a privilege that I did not have and went to an even higher privilege, an even higher class. So it's not really linked to the class or the wealth that you started with. It's literally linked to your mindset and the kind of effort that you're putting in, the determination. It genuinely is all about your mindset and your belief and how hard you work. It is so many things that are internal and completely, maybe like 10%, 5% of the externals. It really depends on your internals. And that's how success plays out. It's about your internals. And when I realized that so many people came from worse and better situations and got to where I want to get, and the fact that there was literally nothing different between me and someone like James Patterson, I started taking writing much more seriously than I did before. I took it seriously, I put pen to paper, and I ended up with 353 pages. Not all of it is good, but by God, the good parts are genuinely jaw dropping. I am genuinely confident in my ability to tell you When I tell you that I am an amazing author, I believe that sincerely because I have proved it to myself. There are lines that I've written, paragraphs, scenes that I've written that when I read again, it feels like someone else wrote them because of how good they are. They seem like they come from an Edith Wharton novel. Like I'm genuinely on par with the classic authors in some respects, in some scenes, and realizing that I was actually good at what I'm doing. Not only do I like it, but I'm actually good. Like, really increased my self esteem. And the reason that I knew that literature was my calling, and this is how you'll know with whatever you're doing, whether it's athletics, or painting, or whatever it is, you will feel such a deep sense of fulfillment from the tiniest practice of it. If you sat there for 30 minutes dribbling a basketball and your calling was playing basketball, you are going to feel like you're on fire. You could have had the worst day in your life, and you had that 30-minute practice, and you felt in your heart that you were okay, that you did good today, that you worked for your ultimate goal today because of that one 30-minute session. I'm telling you, there are moments when I was writing, especially when I was fully in the zone and completely off social media, where I didn't upload videos or I didn't share my writing, and I was completely isolated and only writing. I tell you, I had out of body experiences. I genuinely, while I was writing, while I was fully focusing, with absolutely no distraction, I was in the zone so hard that I saw my soul going out to. It was crazy. You know what? I'm not even going to talk about this because you guys are going to think that I'm insane, but I'm not insane. And anybody that's ever had this situation where they were practicing and working in their own calling, when they were so aligned with their futures, their desired futures, you will know what I'm talking about when I say that I had an out of body experience and that I felt super aligned with myself. Like, for example, when I'm filming this video, I'm not having that moment right now. But I'm filming this video to express myself and to help you guys if you have a similar situation, and to give you guys some guidance and advice. But I know that YouTube is not, for example, my calling. I know that. I sincerely know that. But I still do it because it's, at the end of the day, for me, a method of expression. And it helps me practice my English, the fluency of my thinking, and because I've been struggling with that. And that's ultimately leading to my novel, to my writing, which is, again, aligned with my highest self and my calling. So I'm telling you, when you find that thing, that calling, I feel like all your day you're just gonna be thinking, this is for my writing. Like I do that. Sometimes when I eat lunch, I'm like, I'm only eating lunch right now to go back to writing because nothing else matters to me as much as writing does. And I have other hobbies, I have passions. There's a distinction between a hobby and a calling. And I'll elaborate on that in another video. But trust me, when people call your calling a hobby or just a talent or something on the side, you don't really have to listen to them fully. All right? I don't want you to fully dedicate yourself to this because I do have another point where I say that I made backups. Like, I'm not fully dedicating myself to the writing in a sense of taking like no risk and just going all in on writing. That's not what I'm doing. I still am pursuing a finance degree, something else that I'm pretty good at, but is not my calling. And that is fine. That is fine. It's actually the most reasonable thing you could do as a creative is to have another plan in mind if it doesn't work out, because there are plenty of aspiring writers. I am sure that there are other writers that are as good as me or even better. And I have a plan in case things don't work out. But hopefully they will, and I'm putting in the energy. I am distributing my energy heavily in the writing, heavier than it is about the university work, and that is because it's my calling. So when people tell you that your writing or your painting or whatever it is only a hobby and you should only treat it as a hobby, you can kindly put them in their place. As long as you are willing, you have your backup plans, you have certain scenarios, you have certain careers and like plans in mind, if things don't work out, you can put them in their place respectfully. Like, writing is not a hobby. Writing is not a hobby for me. A hobby is something kind of enjoyable that you develop yourself in, right? For me, a hobby is collecting plant samples and studying plants. But writing, my God, what is entertaining about sitting there with writer's block and staring at your word count barely tick by? That is not a hobby. I'm sorry, baby, that is not a hobby. So I went on a tangent about writing because of course I did. I'm a writer, but of course I have a lot to say about writing. So one of my final points, actually my final point is with all of the academic achievements that I've done and my talents and skills in finance and my talents in writing. That is all because I was extremely blessed. I was extremely blessed, and you are also extremely blessed. But your blessings may lay elsewhere. So I remember that when we were studying for our college entrance tests, there were these my friends, they were scoring less than I was, and some of them were putting in more work than I was putting in, but they still did not get the grades that they desired for whatever they wanted to study. But what those women had that I did not have was the fact that a lot of them had street smarts. They had basic knowledge of how life works. They could connect with people immediately. They knew how to dress better. They knew how to do their makeup better. So when I detail all of my achievements and everything that I know, I want you to know that there are places where I still struggle in as well, and that I am not an infallible human being that's like Superman. I am not Superwoman. I wish I was, but I'm not. And that is perfectly okay because I have been blessed in the academic side, in the scholarly side, while these other areas of life I was not super blessed, but I am working and I am working on developing those skills. For example, my confidence, I'm working on that. I'm working on that. I'm filming. I'm putting myself out there despite me not wanting to necessarily or being afraid to do so. I am working on my confidence. I'm working on my makeup skills because I don't know how to do my makeup and I'm almost 20. That is not something that I want in my life personally. I want to be a very intelligent woman who's also very beautiful and who knows how to take care of herself. And that's why I'm developing in these areas that those women have already mastered. And those women now are entering my area of scholarly achievement, and they're developing themselves in those areas as well. So when I talk about my achievements and when I talk about my blessings, I want you to know number one, I am grateful for them and I acknowledge that they are blessings. My aptitude, my intellect, that is something that I was just born with and I've developed and worked on, right? And you can develop and work on it too. You can even reach like intellect higher than mine. I probably don't have that high of an IQ, but I'm just born that way. I'm born with this intellect in mind and I've developed it. And if you do not have that natural grasp of academics or whatever it is, you can go further than I can, or you can go the same level or whatever you want by developing yourself and putting in the time. For example, in university, there was a computer student, a comp sci student that I knew, and she was talking to me about this upcoming test that we had when I was still in the STEM track. And she was telling me how she's been studying this entire month, like since the start of the month. And I told her, oh, I haven't studied yet. And she's like, what? You need to get studying. And then I explained to her that for me, a test of this size and this bit would take me like a week to get through. And while for her, it would take a month. And actually think that when that test came out, we both did pretty well. However, she put in more work than I did. But at the end of the day, we scored at the same level. So she made up for things that she's developing her academic skill, her studying skills, and she got to a level where I could get. With more time, yes, but so it is. Like, I know some girls who can get ready in like an hour and be completely flawless, and for me, it would take me like 2 or 3 hours. So, there are cons and pros to you as a human being that you were born with, and you just have to put in the work to level up in the places that you aren't super leveled in to a point where you can get to a position that you want to get into. And yeah, I hope that this was somewhat helpful. I really do. I hope I was at least a little bit comprehensible. I hope you comprehended some of my things. I hope the mic wasn't too bad. And I will ask you very politely to subscribe for more because I like expressing myself and it's developing my speech abilities and my ability to communicate verbally. So it's really helpful to me, and it's also very helpful to me in the writing sense, if you don't mind me saying that, because when I am ready to query my novel, which is the process of pitching your novel to publishing houses and things like that, it really helps to have people behind you. It really does. People look at numbers, the publishers, the big people, they look at numbers and they're like, yay, that's I'm definitely gonna publish that. So it really helps me if you do subscribe. And please, if I was wrong about anything that I said, I'm not. No, but seriously, like maybe there's something that I did not have full grasp of. I don't fully grasp it, and your anecdotes and your experience can help me understand this point better, whatever it is. And it could expand my knowledge on this point and could expand just my wisdom in general. So please comment if there's anything that you want to add on to, or you want to contradict or dispute. Put it in the comments. And my poetry collection, the one that I referenced, is in the description below. It's about this girl who reunites with her past lover, who was kind of an absolute jerk to her, and she goes through the motions of recalling what it was like to be in love with this man from her perspective and his perspective. And then she ends all of those poems by specifically saying, like, screw you, and with the three file poems. That's a lot to talk on. Okay, you can find a more comprehensive description of the poetry collection in the Amazon link down below. This description, read the goddamn description. All right, follow me on my social media as well because that's helpful. And perhaps leave a comment there too. Why? Because it would help. Look, despite me being off social media mostly, I am still infested with a Gen Z brain, so that means accidentally mogging at the end of the video. It's fine. It's fine. It's called being young and free. Okay, I'm just yapping at this point. Okay, goodbye, goodbye. I love you. Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you.